Alright everyone, we just started a brand new temple, let's immediately leave. No, I'm throwing this in here at the start to demonstrate that, yes, once you enter the city in the sky, it is in fact daytime everywhere in the game. So, this is particularly useful knowledge if you're waiting around for a shop to open and it's nighttime and you just want to hurry along the process. You can just head to the city in the sky and leave, and then the shop should be open. That's something I only learned in this playthrough because I wanted to experiment, and experimenting is fun. Leads to cool results sometimes. So, the city in the sky is a temple that I kinda have mixed emotions with, or mixed opinions on, I guess. Not really emotions, it's not an emotional temple, but I'm just conflicted because I really like the setting of it, and I really like some of the ideas that it has, and there are certain parts of it that I think are pretty fun to get through, and other parts that are just a real slog and are kind of annoying. Because in games generally, I don't like whenever there's a moving platform that you have to wait for, where it's really far away and then it takes 10, 20, 30 years to reach you, and then you jump on the platform, and then you have to wait 10, 20, 30 years for it to actually get to its designated location. That's just... yeah, I don't really like that very much. It feels like just kind of unnecessary, and there must be better ways of going about having moving platforms to not slow the gameplay flow so much. And now we're going to turn around. Part of what makes this setting so interesting is that everything in this city is designed to look like an egg. So, clearly Dr. Robotnik's dream home. But this little off-the-beaten-path shop here, all the furniture here is eggs. You will give me an egg. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of having these, like, glass... There's just... Some of these chairs seem to have glass and some of them don't. Maybe they're not chairs. Maybe they're like incubation chambers, I don't know. I still find them interesting, regardless. Oh yes, and we just got Uku there, which is to be expected since there's Ukus everywhere in this place, but... if you have to revisit this temple for any reason, definitely grab Uku, because it's kind of annoying to get back out of this temple once you're deep into it, because it's just not the easiest to traverse, or at least not the most convenient to traverse, especially if you're going backwards. But we'll get to that more later, I guess? Maybe not? I don't know. It's a cool dungeon, and it's a fitting last main-ish dungeon. It's not the last dungeon, there are two more after this, but it's the last one that has any sort of, like, MacGuffin attached to it. And here we get a nice, what is it? Dolly zoom look at the whole, establishment. I don't know why that egg over there is broken, but it's broken. I remember in my leisure replay thing, I kind of theorized about this place and why everything looks like eggs, because, you know, it could just be a fun design decision, like, well, the Uka kind of look like chickens, so what other thing can you use as an icon to reflect the existence of chickens besides an egg? Like, if you're going to have some kind of a theme, then that's kind of all you can work with, but at the same time, I feel like if you are a chicken person, like the Uka are, then using eggs as kind of the motif for the whole temple might be symbolic of birth or rebirth or something. And this is where I take the creative liberty to speed up this portion of the temple, just because I was kind of slow when going through it. I don't speed up most of the temple, just this part, because I bumble around like I have no idea what I'm doing, because I don't have any idea what I'm doing. Essentially, I went through the beginning of this temple the way that someone would their first time playing, which is looking around, observing the obvious places that you can go, going to those places, realizing that there's very little to do in any of those places, then look around for an alternative, find the alternative, and finally there's progress. Which I don't have a problem with in terms of the design of the dungeon, it's just that I feel kinda silly for having played this game so many times and I didn't know where to go at the start of the temple, and I just want to move things along a little bit faster, so... I mean, heck, this playthrough's been slow enough that to make up for it I would have to speed up the rest of the game into about 4 seconds, but no, I'm not going to do that. I checked behind this fan here, and I could have sworn that there was something up here because you can latch on to that grating, but I don't think there's anything there. I thought there was a small chest. Maybe my memory is just faulty. I'm not going to actually bother looking this up because it doesn't matter to me too much. And here is where we need to go next. This window to nowhere, which is actually a window to somewhere. Not too terribly hard to find, but you have to know to look for it. Like the kudzu in this place. I don't know if it's actually kudzu, but I'm going to say it's kudzu because I like kudzu. Oh yeah, these spinning gear devices. I don't know if this is true for both of them, because I'm pretty sure there's 2 and we saw 1 already. But I've heard that if you save the game after using one of these, and then quit and reload your save file, then... Okay, good job, Link. Good job, past self. The game will have recognized that you used the spinner in the sense that it won't let you use it again, or the spinning mechanism, but the bridge that it activates won't actually be activated, which pretty much means you're stuck. The game has screwed you out of finishing it because it shows you that you can't do something that you still need to do. But although that is definitely a flaw in the game's design, I would imagine it's kind of hard to account for every possible place to save in a game of this size and have it all work properly. And it's also a very unlikely place for anyone to stop playing. Like, if the game soft-locked... I don't know, that's not the right term at all. But if the game screws you out of finishing it at a point when it says, would you like to save your game, and then you say yes, that would be a big deal, because a lot of people are going to do that. But who's going to start part of this temple, stop at that particular part, and then save and leave? Obviously someone had to discover that that glitch exists, but still. I would assume that's fixed in the Wii version, and probably the HD version. I don't actually know. I would be surprised if they didn't patch that, because Nintendo patches all kinds of stuff whenever they remake things. Like Wind Waker doesn't have the, whatever the super speed swimming is called, that speedrunners used for the GameCube game. I think that fall was on purpose. I can't remember. It was a fast way to get back to the beginning of the room. Yeah, come to think of it, the idea of this game not being perfect on the foundation of a minor glitch like that has reminded me of another rant that I kind of wanted to go on, which is, I've seen... Well, because I've been looking at lots of Breath of the Wild footage lately just to try to convince myself that maybe I should play the game and it still hasn't worked, I've been seeing lots of interesting videos, and one video that I saw said something along the lines of, well, in our opinion, this game is worth a 10. We gave it a perfect 10, even though the game is obviously not perfect, we gave it a perfect 10. And quite a few of the comments that I saw were, well, why'd you give it a perfect 10 if it's not perfect? That's not how ratings work, and to me, that's really, really stupid, because I understand the logic behind it. Oh, hi, Ridley. Yeah, Ridley's back. It's not actually Ridley, but might as well be. This is kind of a cool moment. Anyways, as far as that goes, it makes sense in a way to say, well, 10 out of 10 should just be kind of a reference point for how great something can be. Like, nothing is ever going to actually reach 10 out of 10, but if something's close, then obviously it's really, really good, but you have to still account for the flaws. That's kind of the argument that I imagine it is for having 10 out of 10, but if you're not going to use the 10, then why bother having it be a 10 out of 10 rating? Like, if the high... Well, I would ask people, if no game is perfect, and 10 is perfection, then what is the highest rating that you can give a game? And would that be like 99 out of 100? Would it be 98 out of 100? Because if, for example, we used a 10-point rating system and said 9 out of 10, that's the highest you can go. It might as well be 9 out of 9, because that's what you're really saying, which is mathematically equivalent to 10 out of 10, so there's no reason not to use that number. That's kind of my perspective on it. Like, a 10 doesn't have to mean absolute godlike perfection, nothing can top it. It just has to mean it's a really good game, and whatever flaws that it has, it doesn't really matter. You don't care that they exist. So for me, I would give, like, Star Fox 64 probably a 10 out of 10. That game has some parts that kind of annoy me, but I still appreciate them, and I find them to be a good challenge, because most of the frustration I feel like is my fault. Now we're getting into the real meat of the dungeon, I guess. It's... I appreciate the wind temple, the wind puzzles, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It kind of bugs me in Wind Waker that game has water all over the place, and yet whenever you get the iron boots, it has no purpose other than to just block the wind whenever you use the iron boots. So, in both, I think there are only two other, well, no, let me think. Majora's Mask has kind of something equivalent to iron boots, but not exactly the same. But Ocarina of Time and Twilight Princess have iron boots, and both of them are used to sink to the bottom of the water, and that's used for puzzles and stuff. In Wind Waker, a game full of water, that mechanic is never utilized. So that just... It's... I don't know. It feels underutilized in that game. What's gonna be in the treasure chest? So exciting, it's the map. Which might actually be kind of useful in this place. It's not exactly a maze, but it just helps to know how everything is structured, because the architecture in this place is a bit crazy. The whole idea of a whole city floating in the sky is pretty awesome, and in Skyward Sword, you know, that sort of thing is, it just kind of says... I don't know if there's any actual explanation for why the cities float in that game. In this game, they seem to be held up by humongous propellers and things. But in Skyward Sword, it's just like, they're floating. The islands are floating. Who knows? They're just there. I know that there are theories about how the city in the sky is actually Skyloft from Skyward Sword, just at a later point in its lifespan, because islands are alive. Well, some of them might be, I don't know. Is the island in Lost alive? Something like that. I haven't seen Lost, and probably never will, because that would be a humongous time commitment. But, yeah, this is another reason that I don't really pay attention to the Zelda timeline very much, because it would, in a way, make sense for this to be Skyloft, but also, why does it need to be held up with propellers and stuff if Skyloft didn't need to? What has changed so much in those years? Of course, I think the explanation that I had for the islands in Skyloft being up in the clouds was, oh, there's just a whole bunch of beetles, as in Beetle the Shopkeep, cycling a bike. Just a whole bunch of them just keeping the islands afloat inside the island somewhere. I think that would be pretty excellent. Now for the hardest mini-boss fight in the game. Oh, they're dead. This is such a... what is it? Dodongo's Cavern-esque room, but far easier, because in those, the Lizalfos, or in Dodongo's Cavern, I don't think that you could knock the Lizalfos into the lava, but in this you can just immediately kill them, and it's kind of excellent. This right here might be my favorite puzzle of the dungeon. It is very simple, but... well, not this one, but the one coming right after it. Wind. To get across this gap, you have to use one of the Ukas. Ukabura. And it's not like this hasn't happened in the game already. You know, you use Kakus to fly across gaps occasionally, and that's definitely done in Ocarina of Time, but you don't really see that as a means of progressing through a dungeon very often, using something organic to progress through. Usually you just have to use your items, or you have to use some kind of, like, mechanical device of some sort to proceed. But in this case, you actually use something animal-like, which I think is kind of... it adds personality to the dungeon. It adds liveliness. Even though it is also one of the reasons that the dungeon is a little bit on the slow side.